They say you marry the man, not the family. But they clearly never met my mother-in-law. From the second I walked into their picture-perfect suburban house for our first family dinner, I felt like I was walking onto the set of a psychological thriller. Her eyes scanned me like I was a thrift store knockoff, and her smile didn't touch her eyes. I knew I wasn't her type for her son. I was too opinionated, too tattooed, too real. My husband, Mark, told me not to take it personally. "She's just old-fashioned," he'd say, brushing it off like it was just a mild quirk. But old-fashioned doesn't explain why she once told me, with a straight face, that women who swear are unfit to raise children. Still, I played nice. I laughed at her weird little passive-aggressive digs and brought overpriced wine to Sunday dinners. I dressed a little more conservative. I complimented her dry roast chicken. I tried, really tried, to be the good daughter-in-law. But every time I stepped into that house, I felt like I was auditioning for a role I didn't want. She never used my name. I was always she or her. She'd praise Mark's ex, Lindsay, in casual conversation, saying things like, "She always knew how to set a proper table." Mark noticed. He swore he did. But he also asked me to just give her time. Time, apparently, to plot my emotional destruction one backhanded compliment at a time. Things got weirder when we got married. Suddenly, she started offering parenting, advice, even though we didn't have kids. She'd randomly drop comments like, "It's not safe to have babies in apartments," or, "You'll want someone like me around when the baby comes." I told Mark it was creepy. He said she was just excited about the idea of grandkids. But excitement doesn't explain why she once left a parenting book in my bag. One about how to be a godly wife and mother. And then came the dinners. Oh, the dinners. Every visit became a performance. She'd serve me the smallest portions. Forget, I was lactose intolerant, and once made a toast to women who know their place. I choked on my water. I started dreading every visit. My chest would tighten just pulling into their driveway. I began calling them emotional minefields to my best friend Jess. She said I should start documenting things, just in case. The worst part? Her husband, Ron, was always silent. He'd sit there, sipping his whiskey, not defending. Me not even looking surprised. I couldn't tell if he was oblivious or just well-trained to ignore the drama. And yet, every time I tried to cancel or reschedule, Mark insisted. "It's just one dinner," he'd say. But with my Emile, every dinner felt like a battle, and I was always outnumbered until that night. The night everything flipped. It started just like any other, with fake smiles, overcooked meat, and another one of her condescending toasts. But this time, there was something different in her eyes. Calculating, cold. And for the first time ever, I didn't play nice. I should have trusted my gut when she offered me wine that night, because she never poured my drink. Normally, I'd bring my own bottle and serve myself, just to avoid her commentary on my unsophisticated taste. But this time, she beat me to it. A glass was already waiting at my place, filled with her favorite Pinot Noir. "Thought I'd treat you," she said, smiling just a little too wide. I hesitated. Something felt off. Her tone was sweet, but her eyes were watching me too closely, like she was waiting for a reaction, like she was daring me to take a sip. I didn't touch it. I joked, "Trying to get me drunk so I'll finally agree with, you about beige wallpaper?" She laughed, a hollow, tight sound, and turned away. But I noticed Ron's face, a twitch, a glance at the glass, then back to his plate. We moved on with dinner. She asked me weirdly pointed questions. Things like, "Do you ever feel dizzy out of nowhere?" Or, "Have you ever had your drink spiked in college?" I tried to brush it off as her twisted way of bonding, but then came the salad. She served everyone else from the big bowl, but brought me a separate one. "I remembered you hate onions," she said. "Except I don't. I never have. I love onions. She knows that. Jess had told me once, document everything. Gaslighters hate evidence." So I discreetly texted her under the table. "Something's off." She poured my wine. "Separate salad." Jess replied instantly, "Do not drink anything. Switch drinks if you can." I looked around. Mark was deep in conversation with Ron about lawnmowers. Typical. Always checked out when his mother started, playing her mind games. I knew he'd defend her again if I said anything. Then she reached for her wine and said, "To strong women, may they always know their place." I raised my glass but didn't drink. Neither did Ron. He just stared at his plate. And that's when I knew. He was scared. We moved to the living room for dessert. She made her famous chocolate mousse and brought me a different bowl. "No. Whipped cream, just how you like it." I didn't say a word, but inside, alarms were going off like crazy. I pretended to drop my napkin and leaned over to whisper to Ron, "How do you know she didn't put something in it?" He didn't respond. Just sipped his drink, but his hand was shaking. Back at the table, she kept watching me, like a hawk. I picked up my wine glass, then slowly, casually, placed it in front of Ron's seat while he went to the bathroom. She didn't notice, not immediately. But when Ron sat back down and took a sip, I saw her entire face change. Ron took one sip. Just one. And within seconds, his face went pale. He didn't say anything right away, just blinked like he couldn't quite focus. My mother-in-law, let's call her Susan because of course her name is Susan, noticed instantly. Her eyes snapped to the glass in his hand, and I swear, I saw it. Pure panic. But then she recovered. Too fast. "Are you okay, honey?" she asked, her voice high and tight. Ron nodded, but his brow was sweating now. He tried to stand, then sat back down, gripping the edge of the table like the room had tilted. Mark finally looked up. "Dad? You all right?" Ron waved him off, mumbling something about needing to lie down. But Susan stood before he could, rushed to his side like a nurse from a 1950s horror movie. "He's fine. Low blood sugar," she said, and started guiding him out of the room. That's when I said it, loud and clear. Interesting, considering that was my glass he just drank from. Silence. Cold, hard silence. Mark looked at me like I'd grown another head. "What are you talking about?" he asked, confused. "But Susan?" She froze, just for a second, then turned around slowly, smile gone. "Don't be ridiculous," she said, too calm. "Why would I do anything to your drink?" Her tone was accusing. I was suddenly the dramatic one, the problem. Classic narcissist move. I stood up. "Because I saw how badly you wanted me to drink it, because you've been trying to sabotage me for months, and now he's feeling dizzy after drinking my wine?" "Explain that, Susan." Mark stood too, caught between us. "Are you accusing my mother of, what, poisoning you?" I laughed. It came out brittle and sharp. "If the glass fits." Susan's mask slipped then, just for a second. She stepped toward me, eyes narrowed. "You don't belong in this family. You never did. Everything about you is chaos. You don't deserve Mark." There it was, the truth. Not sugar-coated. Not wrapped in religious guilt or faux niceties. Just raw, open hatred. I turned to Mark. "You hear that? She hates me. She's never tried to hide it. And now your father's about to pass out after drinking what she thought was mine. Still think I'm overreacting?" He didn't answer. He just looked between his dad and his mom, who was now visibly shaking. Ron started coughing, hard. Susan grabbed his arm and hissed, "Let's go lie down, now." But he pulled away from her. "I'm fine," he muttered, then staggered toward the bathroom. That's when I followed him. Not because I cared about him, but because I needed to know. In the hallway, he turned to me and whispered, "She puts things in my tea sometimes to make me sleep. Says I get too chatty." My stomach dropped. This wasn't just about me anymore. I stood there, in that hallway, staring at a man who had just casually admitted that his wife drugs him, and he said it like it was normal, like it was just something that happened in their house. That's when the rage hit me, not just for myself, but for every time I had doubted my instincts. Every time I let Mark convince me it was just her being old-fashioned. I marched back into the dining room, heart pounding. Mark was still trying to piece together the situation, like he couldn't quite believe what he'd just witnessed. Susan stood in the corner, arms crossed, watching me like I was a bomb ticking down. "You drugged your husband," I said out loud. "And you tried to do the same to me." Susan laughed, sharp and cruel. "You're hysterical. You always were." "This is what happens when you let unstable women into your home?" I snapped. "He told me, Susan. Your husband told me what you do, that you drug him to keep him quiet. Is that why you wanted me to drink that wine?" So I wouldn't speak. "Either." Mark looked at his mom, eyes wide. "Wait, is that true?" She didn't answer, just glared at me. But Ron, now leaning on the doorframe, spoke up. "She's done it before, especially when company's over. Says I embarrass her." Susan turned to him, fury flashing. "You weren't supposed to say that," she hissed. "You don't even know what you're talking about." Mark stepped back like he'd been slapped. "Mom, what the hell?" The room felt like it was spinning. Years of gaslighting, guilt trips, veiled insults. It all collapsed in on itself. I saw it hit Mark in real time. The weight of everything he'd ignored. Everything he'd let her get away with. I took a deep breath. "I'm not staying quiet. Not this time. You crossed a line." Susan's voice dropped to a chilling whisper. "You're ruining this family." I stared her down. "No, I'm saving it." Then I turned to Mark. "You need to choose right now, her lies or the truth." He didn't answer immediately. He looked at his mother, the woman who raised him, who he had defended over and over, and then back at me, the woman who had just exposed the darkness she'd kept hidden for years. Finally, he spoke. Quiet, almost broken. "We need to go." I nodded. "Grab your keys." Susan tried to follow us. "You're making a mistake. You'll regret this. She'll leave you, just like they all do." But Ron stepped between her and the door. "Enough," he said. "Let them leave. You've done enough damage." And just like that, we walked out. Into the night. Into the unknown. But for the first time in years, I wasn't afraid. We didn't speak the entire drive home. Mark kept both hands on the wheel, his knuckles white, eyes fixed straight ahead like if he blinked, reality would collapse. I stared out the window, numb. Not angry, not sad, just hollow. What do you even say after something like that? "Hey, your mom tried to sedate me at dinner," didn't exactly roll off the tongue. And the worst part? He still hadn't said a damn word to me. Not sorry, not shocked, just silence. When we got to our apartment, he sat on the couch, head in his hands. I stayed by the door, coat still on. "So," I said, breaking the silence, "was that finally enough for you?" He didn't look up. "I don't know what to say." I laughed, bitter, sharp. "You could start with, Thank you for not dying. Or maybe sorry for gaslighting you for 3 years. He flinched at that. Don't turn this on me. And there it was. The reflex. The deflection. Even now, after everything, he couldn't just take responsibility. She's still your mother, he said quietly. And I'm your wife, I snapped. Or did that stop mattering the moment she poured me a glass of poison? He shook his head. You don't understand. She's not well. I walked over slowly. You're right. She's not. But what scares me more is that you've known that for years and still dragged me into it. He finally looked up. His eyes were red. I didn't know how bad it was. No, I said. You didn't want to know. We sat in that silence, the kind that feels like it stretches over years. And in that silence, I realized something. I was grieving. Not just what had happened, but what I thought we had. The version of him I'd built in my head. The partner who would protect me. I went into the bedroom and closed the door. Cried into my pillow like I hadn't in years. Not because I was weak, but because I was done pretending this didn't hurt. The next morning, I woke up to find him gone. Just a note. I need space. Staying at a friend's. Typical. When things got hard, he ran. I called Jess, told her everything. She was silent for a moment and then said, I'm proud of you. You did the scariest thing. You stood up to all of them. But all I felt was exhausted. Raw. Like I'd been scraped clean from the inside. That night, I found myself staring at the wine glass on our kitchen counter, the same kind she used. I picked it up, then threw it against the wall. It shattered, just like the illusion I'd been living in. 3 days after he left, I got a call from an unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something told me to pick up. Hi, the voice said. Is this Mark's wife? I paused. Who's asking? It's Lindsay, his ex. If this were a movie, that would have been the moment the audience gasped. I sat down. Why are you calling me? She sighed. Because I saw what happened. Ron called me. Now I was confused. Wait, your ex-boyfriend's dad called you? Long story, she said. But I knew something like this would happen eventually. I tried to warn him. I really did. I leaned forward. Warn who? Mark, she said. About his mom. About what she did to me. And just like that, the entire puzzle shifted. She didn't like me either, Lindsay continued. She was nicer at first. Subtle. Until I got pregnant. I stopped breathing. You were pregnant? She hesitated. Yeah, 6 years ago. I lost it. Miscarriage, supposedly. But I've always wondered. There were signs. Weird drinks. Nausea out of nowhere. I thought it was stress. Now I'm not so sure. My blood went cold. You think she... I don't know, she said quietly. But when I saw Ron's name pop up, I knew something serious had happened. And when he told me about the wine, I had to warn you. You're not crazy. You're not the first. I hung up the phone, shaking. Everything made sense now. The obsession with grandkids. The weird comments about children. The parenting books. The control. She wasn't just toxic. She was dangerous. And Mark had known. Maybe not consciously. But somewhere inside, he had to know. I packed a bag that night. Threw in everything I needed. Not just to leave, but to never come back. Before I left, I scribbled a note and taped it to the fridge. Your ex told me everything. I'm done protecting you from your mother. Now it's time you protect yourself. And I walked out. I moved into Jess's guest room the same night I left. It wasn't glamorous. Her dog snored louder than a chainsaw, and the mattress creaked like it had secrets. But it was safe and quiet. For the first time in what felt like years, I could breathe without waiting for the next emotional ambush. Jess made me pancakes the next morning. No questions, no pity, just comfort. "You're not going back, right?" she asked, flipping a piece with unnecessary aggression. I shook my head. Even if he begged, even if she dropped dead tomorrow. The days passed slow but healing. I started journaling again. Long walks, therapy appointments. I even joined a local pottery class because something about smashing and reshaping clay felt poetic. Mark texted. Of course he did. First it was, "I'm sorry." Then, "I miss you." Eventually, "I think I'm ready to set boundaries with her." I didn't answer. Not because I didn't care, but because I finally cared about me more. I saw Lindsay again. We had coffee, talked like old friends who'd survived the same cult. She told me things that chilled me, how Susan had shown up at her job once, uninvited, smiling like a Stepford ghost. "She has this thing about control," Lindsay said, "but the second you stop giving it to her, she crumbles." And that stuck with me. Control only works when you hand it over. One night, I sat alone on Jess's porch, watching the stars and thinking about who I used to be. The version of me who tried so hard to be liked, to be enough. For a man. For his mother. For an entire toxic system. That girl was gone. I wasn't angry anymore, not in the way I was before. I was clear. Like someone had cleaned the fog off a mirror, and I could finally see myself again. I didn't need revenge. I didn't need closure from him. I had the truth. And that was enough. So I started over. New apartment, new number, new energy. And when Ron called, yes, Ron, to thank me for what I'd done, I told him, "It's your turn now. Speak up. Save yourself." Because I had. It's been 6 months. Sometimes when I brush my teeth at night or fold laundry on a Sunday, I still hear her voice. Not the words, just the tone. That fake sweetness laced with poison. But now, it doesn't paralyze me. It reminds me of what I survived. Mark sent one last email, a long one. Apologies, explanations, excuses wrapped in therapy language. He said he'd finally cut contact with his mother, that he wished we could try again. I didn't reply. Not because I hated him, but because I finally loved myself more than the idea of what we could have been. Healing wasn't linear. There were nights I cried unexpectedly, triggers I didn't anticipate, like when a hostess offered me a drink I didn't ask for, or when someone's mom hugged me too tightly, too fast. But with every day, those moments lost power. I've started writing again. Real stories, messy ones, women like me, who trusted the wrong people and found strength in the fallout. People read them and say, "This feels like my life." And I get it, because for a while, I thought I was alone too. I wasn't. I found a community, online, in group chats, through Lindsay, through Jess. Women who knew what it felt like to be gaslit, underestimated, erased, and who fought their way back. I adopted a rescue cat. His name's Whiskey. He hates being touched but loves sitting next to me. We get each other. Last week, I saw Susan's face pop up on my People You May Know tab on Facebook. I blocked her without hesitation. No hesitation. No second look. Just peace. And maybe that's the revenge I never knew I needed. Not her punishment, but my peace. They say forgiveness is for yourself, not the other person. I don't know if I believe that. But I do know this. I don't carry her anymore, or him, or the shame they tried to sew into my skin. I carry me now, and damn, that's more than enough.